Welcome everyone to Ein Sof Learning. I hope everyone's having an amazing day. Today we're going to pick up in our series of Talmud Eser Sefirot, which we began a few months ago. We're in class number 6. We're reaching the end of the first paragraph of the Etz Chaim by the Ari, which we remember is talking about a reality that precedes the creation of the worlds. It's the true reality. It's the first realm, first reality that ever existed. And that's what we call the endless light, where there is no lack, there is no difference between anything. Everything is one. And there's no beginning or end, which doesn't only mean that there is no time, because of course there is no time on such a level. There is no space. There is no vacancy. There is no reception. Because all of these concepts can only be possible within a world of concealment, where there is a concealment. But if there is everything revealed in its fullest glory, then Ein od milvado, there's nothing besides God. There's no space for anything other than the light, the full blast revelation of the endless light of God in this realm. Just to recap some of the things that we talked about in the last class, we defined the term, or the phrase, memula min or ein sof pashutahu, that this reality was filled with simple, boundless light. Rav Ashlag explains that this means that there is nothing that the lower ones can add to it by means of their actions. The lower ones refers to the tachtonim, the lower creations. There's elyon and there's tachton. Elyon means upper, while tachton means lower. There was no space for tachtonim, because everything was fully revealed on its truest, deepest level, which is the light, which is elyon, or elyon. But the tachtonim, which are necessarily included within this realm, because the light is inclusive of all of reality, so even the creations, the lower creations like us and this world, is included in the endless light in its fullest glory. There's nothing we down here can add to the endless light. There's nothing we can add to it, because the endless light is the highest level. It's the greatest possible revelation of light. Therefore, it cannot receive anything. It's the giver. It's the opposite of receiving. The endless light has the desire to bestow, the desire to share. There's no ability to receive. What's infinity plus 1? It's nothing. You can't. It's infinity still. You cannot add anything to infinity. Then we described that the word Rosh and Sof, beginning and end, will be explained below. Then we defined the meaning of the word Or Echad, one light, which we said means that there is no distinguishing between sizes, meaning small and large. There's no way to differentiate between Katan veGadol, because everything was one light, everything was one. Then we defined Shaveh behashva'a echad, that this light was even and of one similarity, one equanimity, totally uniform. What does that mean? Rav Ashlag said that there was no way to differentiate or distinguish zakut ve'aviut. What is zakut ve'aviut? This is one of the most important vocabulary terms, or these are some of the most important vocabulary terms for you to remember. Aviut is a coarse, egoistic desire. That means that it needs to become purified. It still hasn't been purified. We haven't yet learned how to elevate our desire from that of a selfish receiver to that of an altruistic giver, which is the form of the light. The light only has the desire to share, to bestow. While the creations, the created, the emanated, they have the desire to receive, necessarily, because in order to give, they need to first receive. That's us. In order for us to be givers, we must first receive then we can give what we receive to another. Right? But we start out with a selfish desire to receive, which means initially, when we eat our food, when we go out, when we engage with people and we do things in our life, it's selfish. We're in a state of spiritual smallness, which we call katnut. And our desire is very av. Av means it's very coarse, it's very thick. The aviyut is very high, which means it's very physical. It's very thick. Desire to receive selfishly. It's not pure. However, this desire to receive can be transformed, can be purified. Right? When we use it correctly, we can in fact turn our aviyut into zakut, which is purity, thinness of the desire, which means really we're desiring to bestow, which is the form of the light, like we said. The higher you go on the tree of life, the more zakut is increasing. The lower you go, the less zach it is, the more av it is, which means the aviyut increases. So for example, malchut is the most av sefirah, while keter is the most zach. Bechinat dalid, which we referred to in the previous episode, is the desire to receive. It's the highest level of ratzon, what we call ratzon lekabel. It's very coarse. It's very av, high in aviyut. But when we're capable of transforming this ratzon lekabel la'atzmi into a ratzon lekabel al minad lahashpia, which means to transform our desire to receive for the self into a desire to receive for the sake of sharing, then we have done our job. That's really the goal. To transform our selfish desire into an altruistic desire. We're made of desire. But what you do with it is what dictates your level of spirituality or level of connection with the light force. Keter is the most zach. Chokhmah is a little bit more av. Bina is a little bit more av. Zeir Anpin, a little bit more av. Malchut is the most av. That's the ratzon lekabel, the desire to receive. But going back to what Rav Ashlag is trying to teach us, he explains that before the tzimtzum, which means before the creation of the worlds, everything was one and even and uniform, which means there are no levels of zakut ve'aviyut. There is no above and below. There is no purity and thickness. You can't differentiate between keter, chokhmah, bina, chesed, gevurah, and so on. Because everything was on the same level. Imagine a building. There's 10 levels to the building. That's only after the tzimtzum. Before the tzimtzum, there was only one level. Everything was one level. That's what the light is. It's uniform. So that's exactly the case. After the tzimtzum, we are able to distinguish between zakut v'aviyut, but not before the tzimtzum. It's very important to know that. Because the root of everything is oneness. The root of everything is uniformity, singularity. That's the deepest secret of Kabbalah. That's the secret of the Shema, that everything is echad. Even science knows. Everything is one. Everything is united. They call it the unified field theory. Albert Einstein called it the theory of everything. We call it Shema Yisrael, Adonai Echad. That's really what we call it. The Shema Yisrael is the unified field theory of spirituality. And Kabbalah is the chokhmah, the wisdom that can help us explain that and understand that and experience that. Because the goal is to get to a level where we can experience the oneness, which is what we call devekut, cleaving or adhering to the light. All right. Let's get into the second, meaning the next paragraph of Eitz Chaim, Tree of Life by the Ari. We're already 15 minutes in, but I think the recap was necessary. Oh, and one last thing from the recap that we didn't cover here is the name of Ein Sof. Whenever it says in the paragraph of the Ari, the Hu Hanikra or Ein Sof. And this is what we call the endless light. The reality which precedes the Tzimtzum, where everything is light, everything is one. It's called the endless light. So the Rav Ashlag, he explains, how is it possible that we can give it a name? Because we said previously that in order to give something a name, it means you have to have some sort of an understanding or attainment of that name, of that thing, of that thing. And that's what we give it the name. But if you don't have any understanding of it, then you can't give it a name. So he explains that actually the word Ein Sof describes exactly that which we understand about this reality, which is that there is no Sof. There is Ein Sof. That means without end, no ends. The concept of an end, the concept of a limitation, the concept of a conclusion or a border, they don't exist. Not at least before the Tzimtzum. But after the Tzimtzum, where the perception of separation was born, well, that's our reality. Everything has a frame, everything has a limit, everything has an end. Right? This is my right hand, this is my left hand. They're different. They have frame. This is the frame of the fingers. Everything has an end, everything has a border. But in the endless light, there's no such thing as borders. That's why it's called Ein Sof, no end. Alright, now let's get into the second paragraph of the Ari. וכאשר עלה ברצונו הפשוט לברוא העולמות ולהציל הנאצלים. And when it rose upon his simple desire, ratzon pashut, simple desire, livroa haolamot, to create the worlds, v'lahadzil haneetzalim, and to emanate the emanated, lehotzi leor shlimut peolotav ushmotav v'kionav, to bring to light the perfection of his deeds, his names, and his appellations, asher zot haya sivat briat haolamot, which is the reason for the creation of the worlds, etc. We're going to pause there. Let's define the words that the Ari chose to use in this sentence, which is describing the reason for the creation of the worlds. He explains that sivat briat haolamot, that the reason for the creation of the worlds, I'm going to repeat it, is lehotzi leor, to bring to light, shlimut paolotav v'shmontav v'kionav, the perfection of his deeds, names, and appellations. An appellation is like a title, but it's different than a name, really. What was the reason that he created the world? To do good to the creation. He wants to do good because it is the nature of the good to do good. God is the good. One of his names is Hatov. So he naturally wants to do good to his creations. He's like a white hole, which is the opposite of a black hole. A black hole just wants to receive. While a white hole, of course, I'm not sure if such a thing exists in the physical world and science, but I'm just talking metaphorically here. God desires to share, desires to do good. And that's what light is. Light is the goodness. All right, let's get into the commentary by Rav Ashlag when he describes the concept of simple desire. Ratzon pashut. What is that? Ein letemua. There is no need to wonder. Eich nivchan ratzon be'ein sof. How we can examine a ratzon, a desire, in the endless. Hagavua mikol rayon, which is higher than any notion. Ad kedei lomar ala birtzono hapashut, to which we can say that it rose upon his simple desire. Ki tevinze im ma shnit boar la'il, for you will understand with this, from what has been explained above, שבהכרח נמצא בכל נאצל ratzon lekabel et shefa'o mihama'atzil. That necessarily is found in every ne'etzal, in every emanated thing. The desire to receive its shefa, its abundance, its sustenance from the ma'atzil, from the emanator. Every emanated thing necessarily has the desire to receive its sustenance from the emanator. You cannot force the receiver to receive. The receiver must have a desire, meaning a voluntary desire to receive the influence, the shefa, the light from the emanator. Ela shebe Ein Sof Baruch Hu, however, in the endless, blessed be He, hu ratzon pashut. It's a simple desire. There is no selfish desire in the endless. It's a ratzon pashut, simple desire. Besod hu shmo echad. In the secret of Him and His name are one. Hu, in Hebrew, means Him. Shmo, in Hebrew, means His name. The word Shem means name. Hu shmo echad. Him and His name are actually one. Well, what does that mean? As will be explained later. V'chen bedivrei harav Lakman. It will be spoken about in the writings of the Ari later on. Ki haor, the light, shebe Ein Sof, mikonehu. The light in the endless is called Him. Who? V'haratzon lekabel shebe Ein Sof, and the desire to receive in the endless, mechona shmo, is called His name, Shmo. Vehem shneihem besod ha'achdut ha'pashuta, and the two of them are in simple unity. She'ein pirud kol shehu b'neihem, and there is no separation between them whatsoever. Just to reiterate, the desire to receive the light is called the vessel, while the desire to bestow the light is the light. The light desires to bestow, is the shefa. These two entities, the light and the vessel, are opposites. They have an inverse relationship because the light desires to bestow while the vessel wants to receive. But we've already learned in spirituality that there is a law. The way that two things can unite is through similarity of form, not through difference of form. Therefore, how can there possibly be such a world, a reality, called the endless light, where the light and the vessel are one? Because, I'll remind you again, they're opposites. The light and the vessel are total opposites. So how can they be one? Similarity brings closeness, not difference. And here, these two things are absolutely different. Yet they're bound in a oneness that is beyond our comprehension. Omnam al lidmut hapirud v'ha'achdut ha'amurim kan. However, regarding this separation and unity that we're mentioning here, al hapirud v'ha'achdut shebemushgim hagashmiim. God forbid you should think that we're talking about a physical separation or a physical unity. Hanifradim al derech hatenua, which are distinguished through motion. There is no such thing as motion in the physical sense when we're talking about these high spiritual concepts. Don't, God forbid, think that when we're talking about unity and separation and change, that we're referring to physical concepts here. Berichuk makom uvikiruv makom, where in the physical world there is a distance and closeness, We're not referring to the physical meaning, the physical definitions of these terms. Ki hamahut haruchaniut eina tofeset makom kol ikar. For the essence of spiritual things do not take up any space whatsoever, as you know. No physical. Omnam teda shahapirud beruchaniim. However, you should know that separation in spirituality eino naaseh zulat al yadei mikra shinui tzura, does not take place except through a change in form. Shinui tzura. The word shinui means change or difference. Tzura means form. So through a change in form, through a shinui tzura, a difference in the form of something, that's what gives birth to spiritual separation. Bilvad, alone. Only through difference in form. Be'ofen, therefore, she'im davar ruchani echad kone lo tzura nosefet hamushna mauta hatzura sheyesh lo. It's saying here that if a spiritual thing acquires for itself an additional form that is different from its original form that exists, hine yatzalo hadvar haruchani, this spiritual thing emerges, hahu mibechinat echad, from a state of echad, which means oneness, lishtei, to two bechinot, two features, two dimensions, nivdalot, that are distinct, hamitrachot, that are distant, zo mizo, from each other. These two bechinot, which emerge from this shinui tzura of the original form, are distinct and they are separate. Al pi hafichut sheyesh beotan bet tzurot, according to the oppositeness of their form. Let's make this a little bit practical. Not practical, but more easy to understand. I have here an item. It's a water bottle. Let's call this a form, a tzura, a spiritual form. Just play a game with me. Of course, this is a physical object, but let's try to understand the concept as much as we can. Let's say this is a spiritual item. If I move this item from point A to point B, in the physical way that we understand things, it used to be in point A, but I'm moving it to point B. So there aren't two dimensions. It's the same item. It's just been changed. But in the spiritual worlds, where there is no concept of absence, if I take this form and I create a change, a difference, what we call shinui tzura, in this case, we're using the metaphor of moving it through space, right? In the spiritual worlds, there is no absence, which means that the first form, the original position that it was in, it's still there. But it is now also in this second position, which we call shinui tzura, difference of form. And they both exist at the same time. So, because of the shinui tzura, because of the change in the form that I have made on this spiritual form, it emerges from a state of echad, from one to two. Now there are two dimensions to this spiritual item. One is the original form, and the second is the additional form, the one with the change. Another example I can give to explain this is, let's say you have a picture or a video, and you know how on the iPhone you can edit an image, and when you click save, it gives you two options. Save original, meaning save as original or save as a copy. The option that we're speaking about within the spiritual worlds, whenever you effect a change or whenever you edit a spiritual item, you are never altering the original. You are saving as an additional form, saving as a copy. So this second form which emerges is a copy of the first form, meaning the original form, but there is something different about it. There's a change that has been affected within this form. There is a difference of form, shinui tzura. That's as good as I can do to explain the concept in a way that we can understand at least the idea, right? We're not experiencing the spiritual worlds right now. We could if we knew the Chokhmat Kabbalah, and we would be able to study this wisdom and experiment while we are learning. Like in a science lab, you have to experiment. You're in a laboratory. Right now, as good as we can do, because we don't know the wisdom yet, is to deal with concepts. So therefore, this wisdom for us is very conceptual. So we do have to use examples, ideas, metaphors, signs, whatever we can in order to understand these concepts, which I'm doing my best here. So I think we understood this idea that the concept of distance and separation in the spiritual worlds is performed through a difference in form, a change in form, what we call shinui tzura. Okay? And he says, God forbid, do not think that we're talking about physical forms, but it's similar to the same way that physical things separate. That's the way that we're talking about this type of separation. It's totally distinct. Just as two physical items connect with each other and distance from each other through physical distance and proximity, closeness. The same way that in the physical world things come close and come apart from each other through remoteness and proximity, so too in the spiritual worlds we're dealing with forms, spiritual forms. They're differentiated through the difference of form or similarity of form. I think that we've understood this concept very well. Sheyeshno hatzura mivdalan zo mizo. That change separates them. Vahishtavuts hatzura midvaktan zo bezo. And similarity of form connects them or binds them with each other. V'zchor zot, remember this. Ki zehu hamiftach harishon lechokhmah. For this is the first key to wisdom. Wow. This is the first key to wisdom. To understand the spiritual law of attraction and repulsion. Spiritual attraction and spiritual repulsion is defined by similarity of form or difference of form. That's the way that things unite or distance in a spiritual sense. We can go a little bit further. It has already been 35 minutes. But I think we're doing good. Ve'ata tevin et zod hu shmo echad. Now you can understand the secret of him and his name are one. Hanizkor la'ayl, which we mentioned above. Ve'inyan ha'achdut ha'pashuta she'anu madikim kol kach be'ein sof baruch hu. And the concept of simple unity, ratzon pashut, that we mentioned and emphasized so much in the endless, blessed be He. Ki ha'achdut hazo hi miflaot kol yichlato yitbarach. This unity is of the wonders of His power. May He be blessed. Rav Ashlag is saying it's one of the greatest wonders of Kabbalah. Ki hineh nitba'er la'ayl be'or pnimi. For it has already been explained above in Or Pinimi, which is a section of the Talmud Eser Sefirot, letter Vav, number 6. Ha'havdal bein ha'ma'atzil le'ne'etzal. The difference between the ma'atzil and the ne'etzal. The emanator and the emanated. Shenit hoveh michmat hatzura shel haratzon lekabel sheyeshna bene'etzal ve'ena mema'atzil. Which comes into existence in the ne'etzal. Which comes into existence because of the form of the ratzon lekabel, the desire to receive, that exists in the ne'etzal and not in the emanator, not in the ma'atzil. Alright, we just got a nugget here. What is the change of form that allowed for the creation? Because first it was just the creator, the ma'atzil. But this ma'atzil underwent a shinui tzura. It underwent a change of form. And then we got the emanated. And then we got the created. Then we got the formed. Then we got the made. Corresponding to the four worlds. Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah. But before, everything was one. Everything was just the creator, which we refer to really as the endless light. That's the creator. So what was the change of form? Mikhmat hatzurat shel haratzon lekabel. The desire to receive. Initially, it was no desire to receive. There was only the desire to share. But the shinui tzura occurred, which really we're going to learn how it happened and what it caused and what it's all about. Really, the tzimtzum is really involved in this concept, in this conversation here. Besibat shinui tzura. So the emergence of the ma'atzil into two bechinot, meaning ma'atzil and now ne'etzal, is because of the desire to receive, which is awakened. We're gonna let me keep reading here. Nivdal ha'ne'etzal min ha'ma'atzil, which separates the ne'etzal from the ma'atzil. Ve'kana lo shem bepni atzmo, and it acquires its own name. Lehakra ne'etzal velo ma'atzil, and it is called ne'etzal, not the ma'atzil. Ulefi hamevoar hine yesh makom letaut v'lechashuv she'or ein sof mikonahu eino lidevuk ligmori chas v'shalom be'ein sof hamechona shmo. It says, therefore, there is room for error to think that the endless light, referred to as Hu, is not completely attached to Shmo, his name. Dehainu haratzon lekabel, which is the desire to receive. Et shefa vehaor hanikrahu, the desire to receive the shefa and the light called Hu, him. Shari or elyon hanimshach me'atzmuto yitbarach hamechona Hu. The upper light, the or elyon, that extends from his essence, may he be blessed, hamechona Hu, is called him. Remember these are vocab terms here. Hine kol tachunato rak lahashpia. Here, in the or elyon, the upper light, called Hu, there is only the desire to bestow. Ve'ein bo mitzurat haratzon lekabel, and there is no form of desire to receive. Velo kulam, not at all. He's saying there is zero desire to receive in the upper light. Mishachar kach, on the other hand, Ein Sof hamechona shmo, the endless called his name, the attribute of his name, sheyesh bo haratzon lekabel, which has the desire to receive, hamushona mishum ze min or ha'elyon, is different, therefore, from the upper light. She'ein bo chas v'shalom shum ratzon lekabel, which has no desire to receive, God forbid. כמבואר ונודע ששינוי הצורה עושה פירוד. חס ושלום. As it is explained, that the change of form creates a separation. God forbid. He says chas v'shalom here. He's saying that this is not necessarily what we want here. We want to be uniting with the Creator, which means we have to emulate the form of the Creator. Because the change in form is what creates separation, is what creates differentiation. The desire to receive, as we're going to see, is really what we're talking about. Harav Lakman. And this will be explained by the Ari later on. She'eno ken, chas v'shalom. That there is no such differentiation. There is no such separation. Ela, hu shmo echad. Instead, him and his name are one. Be'achdut pashuta. In simple unity. She'ein b'neihem shum havdil. That there is no difference between them. Ve'af al pi sheyesh b'neihem. That although there is between them, bein hu vein ushmo, between him and his name, Eiza shinui tzura behachrach kemevoar, that there is necessarily a difference in form between him and his name, meaning the light, and the desire to receive the light, as explained. Nevertheless, ken hu bli shum safek. This is the case without any doubt. Rav Ashlag is speaking very heavily here. That's why I'm trying to emulate his intensity. He's saying, although we don't understand it, this is undoubtedly so. That the light and the vessel, meaning Hu and Shmo, are Echad, which is the reality of Ein Sof, before the creation of the worlds. Ve'al ze amru, shebe Ein Sof baruch hu, leyat shum bechashuva, tafisa biya klal v'klal. And on this it is said, that regarding the endless, blessed be He, there is no perception whatsoever. There is no attainment. There is no thought in the endless. Lihyot inyan zeh lema'ala mistichlanu. For this issue, this matter, is above our minds. So he's trying to say that the secret of Hu Shmo Echad, him and his name are one, where the light and the desire to receive the light are united in a simple unity, achdut pashut. This matter is above our minds. He says, although we don't understand this, it is undoubtedly so. In other words, for us, it's like an axiom. We have to assume that there actually is such a reality. Everything else that comes after, where there is difference, where there is separation between him and his name, that's something that we can explain, something we can understand, something we can experience. But the unity of the light and the vessel is not possible to understand through the mind. So I want to ask you something. Does that mean there is no way to experience the unity? Does this mean we're stuck in the world of duality? And the answer, my friends, is no. It does not mean that there is no way to attain it. There is a way. That's through the deep, deep learning of Kabbalah. You're not able to experience this within the body. That is really true. You cannot experience this unity that we're referring to of the Ein or Ein Sof within the body. You can experience it outside the body. I'm not going to get into it, not because I don't want to, but because I don't know anything about it. But I've been told by my own rabbi that this experience of this unity is possible. It exists, and that's actually the goal. That's the deKedushah. That's the whole purpose of learning Kabbalah, is to eventually you're going to lead to a path where you will reach deKedushah, cleaving to the light, which means your form is completely one with the form of the light. Meaning you have zero desire to receive, you only have the desire to bestow. Alright, we've reached the end of that letter, of that number, which was number 30, explaining the meaning of Ratzon Pashut, simple desire, that exists in the endless. It refers to the unity of the Or Elyon, the upper light, with Shmo, which is his name, the desire to receive the light. And these two polar opposites are one in the endless. The way we experience this reality is that they're separated. Hu shmo are not echad. From the perspective of this world of falsehood. That is the falsehood. That's the illusion. That's why the Ari says that this world is olam ha-sheker, a world of lies. Because we think and we perceive, and that's our experience, that hu shmo lo echad. Chas v'shalom. Hu shmo echad. In the endless, everything is one. This is the beauty of learning Kabbalah, that you realize that there is so much more to learn about reality. The proof is that look at the way we experience reality today. We experience total separation. Everything is different, unique. One, multiplicities, separation, plurality, 2, 3, 4. But it seems that that's the truth. But it's not. So comes the Ari, so comes Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rav Ashlag, all of the Mekubalim, the Zohar, the Eitz Chaim, to teach us of the divine unity which exists at the pinnacle of reality, what we call the Or Ein Sof, the light of God, in which there is no separation, in which there is no lack. And that is the truth behind reality. It's the sod of Hu Ushmo Echad. Beautiful. In next class, we're going to learn the meaning of tzimtzum, to contract, which we've already spoken much about. But if you're being honest, we still don't understand. So join me in next week's class for a ride that you will never forget. See you there.